It's time to take your seat in the front row with Mike Vaccaro. Here's your host, Mike Vaccaro.
And thank you, Chuck, and welcome everybody. Mike Vaccaro once again with you in the front row. As always, it's J.R. Quitman behind the scenes, our creator, producer, and director. Well, we're up to episode number 64. For that today, we stick with football. We stick with the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. We go to Michigan and Ann Arbor as we have the former running back star Tyrone Wheatley, our guest here today. Grew up in Michigan, went to Michigan, though that was not his first choice. We'll hear that story today. Drafted by the Giants, what he calls tumultuous years with the Giants, eventually found his way to the Raiders and finished up his career there, 10 years in the NFL. From there, went onto the coaching ranks and currently the head coach at Wayne State in the Detroit area. He joins us today, Tyrone Wheatley, with a great story of growing up and really survival and also opportunity meets circumstances. You'll hear that a lot in today's episode. It is episode number 64, former Michigan running back Tyrone Wheatley. We always like to start at the beginning, and for you, it starts in Inkster, Michigan. Growing up there, tell us about what it was like for you early on in your life and where sports, what role they played in your life.
Well, it's a very blue collar town. Inkster was basically formed by Ford Motor Company for the workers. Dearborn Heights Ford, they call it the Downriver area. So this whole Downriver area was formed for a community for the workers. And so it's a lot of blue collar people. Hardworking people. I call it just Midwest hardcore values, right? We grew up lower middle class, but we were all the same. So you didn't know any different. Does that make sense? You don't know any different. And so every day was a competition. It was a competition waking up. I was raised by my grandma. My mother had me when she was 16 years old. I had 18 uncles and aunties, and I just said this. It was, like I said, it's a competition every day. It's a competition at the table for food. It's a competition to get who gets to bed or who gets in the bathroom early in the morning. So it's a competition every day, right? So there was a competition every day. So it just kind of fueled my life for sports. I knew early on that I had a special talent, that I was fast, that I could run. And I would just race everybody. And then we started our own little neighborhood Olympics. Jumping over the hedges, who can jump the furthest over the driveway, shot putting bricks, right? So it just competition. And like I said, then it just grew into sport. And of course, back in those days, my grandmother, she ruled the TV. You couldn't watch the TV. She ruled it because when she came home from school, and then in summertime, from about 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock, man, from the daytime soap operas and her game shows. So you couldn't watch TV, but you didn't want to stay in the house, right? Because here's the next thing. Back in those days, there was no remote control. So guess who was the remote control? I was. Hey, Tyrone, go turn the channel. I could be in the bedroom somewhere. I could be outside. I hear her calling my name. I'll run in the house thinking something's wrong. Hey, can you change the channel? So I wanted to go out and I wanted to play. And, there was no air conditioning, so you stayed outside. It was hotter in the house than it was outside. But to come back to the sport I was a, busy child. I was busy, and sometimes busy turns into, like I said, idle hand becomes a little, I don't like saying that word, but it becomes a playground for destruction. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't a terrible guy. I was just a mischievous kid. And I got into some trouble, and that's how football came into my life, where my uncles was like, man, we have to do something with you. You got to burn this energy off. Let's get you into some football. Now, I started off playing with the Inkster Raiders, where I fell in love with it. And I was fortunate enough to come across two incredible men in my life, Coach Jones and Coach Dobbins. When I tell you the old school rearing and coaching, those guys would not make it today, or the kids wouldn't make it today, but it was great for me. It was what I needed. And I've always heard this, but I never understood it until I got older. People crave discipline. They crave instruction. They just don't know it. And I was that kid. I fought it at first, but once I found out that the instructions that they gave me, the discipline that they were giving me, it kept me on a straight path, and it kept me on a path of not hitting landmines. Once I kind of went off the reservation off that path, I would hit landmines and blow myself up. And then I said, you know what? I got to get back on this path. And that's kind of what helped me go from that point on. Just loving sports, and then the thrill of competition, of beating someone and being beat, like I said, let's go back to the neighborhood street Olympics. I would get beat, and I couldn't sleep that night. I just couldn't sleep. I was like, I would wake up the first thing sign in the morning. I'll go bang on the door, and one of my good friends, Tyrone Armstrong, who played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Dallas Cowboys, and he was a little bit older than we were, but I would go banging on his door, and his mom, Miss Armstrong, God rest her soul, lovely lady, she was like, Tyrone, if you don't understand what a clock is, and you don't come in my house at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, banging on my door, Tajay ain't up yet, go to sleep. And that was kind of my deal. And I became like the neighborhood nuisance. And it was a good deal. It was a good deal for the simple fact that we kind of kept each other close. Sports kept us together, discipline. But man, I tell you, it was incredible growing up.
Do you make it out of there without sports and some of the mentors that you had that were coaches and drove you?
Absolutely not. I don't. And don't want to turn this into a somber interview or create, political deal, whatever the case may be. So we had at this park down the street, it was called Penn Park, and Robichaud is the high school I went to. And so Penn Park is right across the street. And that's when they would serve the free lunches at the parks. Mm. You go get your little jug of red juice, green juice. The green juice has made my mouth itch, right? The little applesauce and the sandwich with the block of cheese on it. But we would go there every day, 11:30 to 1, to get our free lunch. Mm-hmm. Then we would play basketball. Then we would go see, here in Michigan, you have a 10-cent refund on bottles. You go collect bottles, pay $1 to go into Robichaud and swim. That was our day.
Wow.
Right? That was our day. That was right around when Reagan cut those fundings. Mm. And when he cut those fundings, that kind of put a hole in our day, because you didn't have the free lunch, which a lot of us counted on as free. We needed that free lunch, right? So that cut a hole in our day. And then we still would go play basketball. We still would go swim. But that lunch was where we congregated. It was where we talked. It was where we talked about our dreams, what we wanted to do. And it took away that time. And so once that happened, so many of my guys just started to splinter off. They just started to splinter off, and they got into some things and started getting into trouble. And like I said, that's kind of where my idle hand, I knew my trouble limit. I call it trouble limit. I knew there were some things that I was going to do. And I know some things that I was more afraid of my grandmother and my uncles of the police. If I was to get arrested, I was like, hey, just take me to jail. I'm not going home. However, some of my other friends just fell into, and I was right at the height of the crack epidemic, right? Yeah. So fast money, living fast. And for me, I just knew that wasn't a mold. But, for me, I was breaking car windows, throwing rocks through vacant lots. And that was fun at that age, yeah. But you just didn't know it was being a tyrant.
So football reeled you in a sense. In addition to the coaching and the discipline, what else did you really like about football?
The brotherhood. Inkster is a small town, but there's one road that separates us. It's Inkster Road. It's the east side, and I stayed on the west side of Inkster. I started on the east side of Inkster, and Inkster High was on the west side. And that rivalry between Robichaud and Inkster High, was incredible. So you really couldn't cross Inkster Road. If you crossed Inkster Road, it was over. It was fights, it was everything. But, however, football and where I played with the Inkster Raiders was kind of that you get a pass. You get a pass to come on this side of Inkster to go play with the Inkster Raiders. And so we collectively put our east side and our west side aside to play for the Inkster Raiders. And then when you're not playing and you're over there and you're playing basketball and they say, oh, he's a Raider, leave him alone, he's okay. So it brought people together. But like I say, the brotherhood, man, it was just guys that we all kind of had some of the same issues, and we were able to talk them through and just love each other through it. And like I was the oldest grandson, so I had nothing but like young girls under me. And then until my cousin came along, he's 5 years younger than I am, but I had nothing but girls. And I grew up in a house full of women because all my uncles were out the house at that time, but I was in a house full of women. But now I get a chance to be around guys and play and just hang out. And that was the biggest part for me. It was a second family.
Transition going to high school and the sport still there with track and football. You're a 9-time state champion. Was that an easy transition and something, again, that you continue to enjoy being around those other boys on the high school level on the teams that you played upon?
No, it wasn't an easy transition because now you're entering, it's like college almost, but it's high school. So now you're in the 9th grade, and now academics is important, right? Whereas in, elementary, you kind of slough off, do a little bit, and, but now it's high school. And grades, and Coach Yacht had these little yellow weekly progress report cards that you had to go take around, give them to your teachers. And, if he seen some D's on there, man, it was hell to pay. Sometimes he wouldn't play you. And, I struggled there a little bit with the academics because it wasn't that the hard work was hard. It's just I never had the discipline on that end of academics and sitting down, planning out your day. What's a priority? Yeah, you can be outside playing all day and you want to be good at your sport, but now the only way you can play your sport is to have your academics. And so that was kind of rough for me, the transition going into my freshman year. The second portion of my freshman year, the transition was, understanding the whole thing of accountability. That academics kind of fall into that accountability aspect, but the next portion of it is how you carry yourself. I'm not gonna lie to you. I used to like to fight. I was a fighter, man. There was a fight I didn't like. It just didn't. That was another part of being a competitor. And my grandmother would always say this. What makes you great will also. What makes you great will also kill you. And I was like, man. And I never knew when to stop competing. So my character and understanding when to stop arguing, when to just say, okay, what fight is important? What battle should I fight? And understanding the next portion of it is there's a chain of authority. There's a chain of authority. Bow down, shut up, nod your head yes, and listen, And I think my freshman year, that's where I got into most of my troubles, and where I grew the most was because, like I said, regardless whether it was an argument, physically, mentally, there was not a challenge or a fight that I never backed down to. And sometimes I would just do it just to do it. But that was the biggest transition for me. And then you talk about 9-time track. My freshman year, I did really well in our conference. But once we got into the regional track meets, I made it to the state finals as a true freshman, but ended up getting my butt kicked. I mean, embarrassed, brother. I mean, bad. That was a terrible day. And you know what? I walked away from it and I laughed. And Coach Jones was my track coach at the time. He said, "What is so funny?" Excuse me for cursing. I said, "I got my ass kicked today." I said, "But guess what? I'm taking names next year. I'm taking names." And that's going into my sophomore year. That's where the delicate balance of growth and maturation came, because now I was able to put together. I had to go to summer school because I messed up some classes my freshman year, but that's where it became okay, I have to get myself accountable to not only my teammates, but to myself. Hey man, listen, every weekend we're out here, we're doing X, Y, and Z, but I'm not great in math right now. I know my numbers and all that stuff. I said, but once they started introducing letters into math, I was done, right? So, and I had friends that was good in math. They would come help me, tutor me in math. And it was an incredible deal, man. It was an incredible deal. It was an incredible growth period for me.
Yeah, it seems like you were a guy that learned the hard way at times, it sounds like, off the field, whether it's football, whether it's track or field, but then back on the field. And track and field, 1991 was a good year. You were the track and field cross country athlete of the year. Did losing the year before, as you said, getting your ass beat, did that help you out in 1991?
Absolutely. So here's the deal. And like one of the biggest things that, we go back to character and growth. Coach Jones and Coach York was my high school football and track coach. They'd always tell me you have to have sportsmanship. And I was like, man, sportsmanship is for losers. I'm not shaking your hand after if I lose a game or track, I'm not shaking your hand. I'm not congratulating you. I might want to fight you after this. And which I did a couple of times, right? No, why would I shake your hand after I lost? And so I had to understand that concept. And the reason why I say that is, like I said, when I lost that year in my freshman year, and as I said, and I never forget, I was walking up this hill to get to our tent, and I was mad. Then all of a sudden, he put his hand around my shoulder, and I just started laughing. And I said, you know what? I'm taking names next year. And I think at that point in time, I started to understand what sportsmanship was, right? Hey, man, shake his hand. He got you that day. Give him his props, give him his due, understand and take it, use it as fuel, however you want to do it, put a chip on your shoulder, whatever you want. But, don't show your butt. Don't act ignorant. Don't be a sore loser, right? And that's what I learned about sportsmanship. And I think that's where I grew. And so once again, man, I wanted to hand out that pain to everyone that I experienced my freshman year.
Roles reversed now for you. We're going to get more into later on, but now you're the coach and you're the one imparting the advice. But is this stuff that stuck with you, from your high school days that now you carry over as a coach yourself?
Absolutely. I think many of us, it's nature versus nurture, right? A lot of us, how we were reared, the experiences we had growing up, now we take them into adulthood and they become part of our life's philosophy, and our process of how we deal with certain situations and how we go through life. Then you pick up things along the way, either from a coach, your parents, your grandparents, even your teammates, friends, and whatever the case may be. And that's why I say then it goes to nature, right? Things you pick up, the do's and don'ts of your neighborhood, how you navigate the streets or navigate the situations. And so all those things, yes, that is my bag. That is my bag and who I am and what I am right now. I am still a competitor. I'm still a sore loser. I just know how to deal with it a little bit better now, right? But it all culminates into this one package, and it got me to where I'm at right now.
Yeah, coaching right now. And again, we're going to get to that in a little bit later on. But you go from high school to college. You're the Michigan Player of the Year in high school. So was it a given that you were going to go to Michigan?
No, it wasn't a given I was going to Michigan. I grew up a Michigan State fan. Yeah, I love the green and white. Lorenzo White, Blake Ezor, man, Carl Banks, Andre Rison, Michael Irvin, and you name it. Man, I was a Michigan State fan.
Wow.
So, and people say why? Because it was once again, it was the influence of my neighborhood. A lot of people where I'm from didn't go to Michigan, right? They didn't go to Michigan. As a matter of fact, I was kind of a Michigan hater because we called them snobs. They just thought they were better than everybody else. And so I was a huge Michigan State fan. And then, like I said, a lot of people in the neighborhood went to Wayne State, Eastern Michigan. So you kind of gravitate towards what you see every day. So I saw more green and white in my neighborhood, whether it been Eastern Michigan or Michigan State, than I saw maize and blue, right? And so my cousin went to Michigan State. So I grew up. She, like I say, she was older than I am. Like I said, I grew up with older women in my household, be it cousins or aunties. And she went to Michigan State, man. And I went up to her school. I would go up there. I would sneak up there when I was younger and have fun at the parties. And I just love Michigan State. And this is an important fact. And a lot of people, say, well, why is this important? It was really important because when you went to Ann Arbor, wasn't a lot of folks that looked like me in Ann Arbor. It just wasn't a lot. You go to Michigan State, you go to Eastern, hell, man, it was party time. It was like, hey, okay, there's people who look like me, talk like me, and where I'm from. So there was a representation for me at Michigan State and at Eastern Michigan, as well as, in Ann Arbor, most of the black people walking around with damn near all the athletes. So it just wasn't a big thing for me at that point in time.
So why go there? What made you go to Michigan? And then that being the case, what was that transition like for you?
I'm going to go back to what it was then when the Inkster Raiders. It was the discipline.
Yeah.
Nothing against George Perlis. I love George Perlis to death. Bobby Williams recruited me. Bobby Williams, love him to death. Still speak to Bobby. Bobby and I are real close to this day. I took Michigan State as my first and only visit because I was going to commit on that day. Wow. Coach Bibbs was a downriver guy who ran track and coached track at Michigan State. So I was going to be a dual sport. I was going to run track and play football at Michigan State. One visit, that's all I booked. And it was the first visit and it was my only visit. And I was going to commit. I was going to commit on that visit. And I went on the visit, had a blast. And that was the issue. I had a blast. Mm. You know, people always look at me and say, well, isn't that what you want? I was like, yes. But knowing me, I don't need to have a blast. I need someone with their foot up my rear end with a short leash on me. That's what I need. And I kept telling the coaches that's what I needed. And I knew Bobby would do it. And, I know Coach Bibbs would get on me. But I just didn't feel that. Just didn't feel it. Because I knew I was afraid I remember the freshman year transition that I was afraid that was going to happen. But then at the same time, going from high school to college, I'm not going to lie to you, I was a little bit nervous of that transition as well. I was scared to death. And I just had too much fun on the visit, had way too much fun. And so I opened up my recruiting and went back on some more visits, and Michigan was not on the thing. I went to Colorado, Tennessee, and Indiana. And then I had one visit left. And Michigan called and said, do you want to take a visit? I was like, no, not really interested. There's like, we have one visit left. I said, yeah, I do, but not interested. And so my birthday is January 19th. And Miss Herson was a really good mentor and a teacher that was in Robichaud. She and I were still, talking and just hashing this thing out. And she said, why don't you just give Michigan a try? Why don't you just give it a try? I said, no, Miss Herson, no. Don't want to go up there. Don't want to be a part of it. So I go up on my birthday, and they're completing Schembechler Hall. They renovate. I mean, they're starting to build it, completing it. And at this point in time, they was doing construction on the Michigan field. And so I go in, we have this talk. Lance Dotton was my host. He was a fifth-year senior. And at this point in time, Trip Wellborn had tore his ACL. He was back on campus because Tripp and they're all from that Massachusetts, back the Boston area. So they're all kind of hanging out in this apartment. And it was just the opposite of the Michigan State visit. It was very serious. It was very, hey, what do you want? What are you looking for? And my man, Lance Dotton, loved him to death. I told him, I said, I just need an opportunity. And so when we talk about taking things and putting it in your bag, I use this with every recruit every single day. I'm going to give this jewel. This is free. But Lance said, I said, man, I just want an opportunity. He said, brother, you already have the opportunity. You created it. He said, look at the word opportunity. And he handed me a dictionary. And I started to read, and it says circumstance. He said, stop. He said, a key word in opportunity is circumstance. He said, everybody's looking for an opportunity. He said, you create the opportunity. He said, right now is what you need is the right circumstances. That's what you need. Stop looking for the opportunity. He said, you created it. We all create our own opportunity. The way we now look at it is what's the circumstances? Where are you at in your life right now? What do you need? What are the circumstances you need? All right, cut the long story short. I leave Lance. I go back to my hotel room. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, circumstances. I need discipline. I need strong men around me. This is a different place for me. Ann Arbor is different, but I need to grow in different. I need to be, And I remember this from one of my biology classes, like, for a new species or an organism that's introduced into a new environment, is either going to do one thing, is either going to adapt or it's going to fall prey. And the competitor in me was like, damn it, I'm going to adapt and I'm going to be an alpha. And so that's how I chose Michigan. And Gary Moeller played the largest part in it all. When I tell you a man that, you're talking about accountability, oh man, he was on me. He was on me. it was, he would call me and I would miss a class in high school. Like I would miss a class in high school. He would call me. He was like, why did you miss third hour? How the hell did you know? Don't worry about it. You missed third hour. Go to class. And I knew I picked the right place. Because it goes back to my circumstances. Everybody wants opportunity. It's not opportunity to play. We're all going to get to play, right? We're all going to get a chance to play. We're all going to get a chance to get on the field. But if your circumstances don't align, then you won't get a chance to play on the field. And Lance dropped that on me, man. And like I say, it was a very, very opposite visit from Michigan State. Didn't have no fun. We didn't go out. Like I said, we sat in Lance's apartment with Mike Evans, Trip Worldborn, Otis, like the older guys, man. And they took me under their wing. And that's what I needed. What I needed.
That's really mature for you, again, as a high school guy to have that recognition, hey, yeah, I had fun here, but this is where I need to be. And certainly it worked out for you. You look at, what you did with that team, with Michigan, and that transition seemed easy, at least on the football side. When you look at 1,000-yard rusher, sophomore, junior, senior years, over, 4,000 rushing yards. Was it that easy once you got onto the field and you made that a good fit for you?
I mean, it wasn't easy. I don't think everything is easy. It was simple. And people ask me, what you mean? It's simple. Well, once again, simple. When you think about the circumstances and keep the main thing the main thing. Did I go to a couple of parties in college? Yeah, I went to a few parties, but that wasn't my bag. My party was on the end zone. That was my party. I didn't have a lot of money, so trying to, as kids call it now, drip and all this stuff, that I didn't have money. So drip, I didn't have to have the best clothing or to try and look the best because I wanted to look my best on Saturday. So once again, it wasn't easy, but it was simple because I kept my life simple and to prioritize. So people say, you sacrifice. I never sacrificed anything. I just prioritized. I think when people use that word sacrifice, they feel as though they're giving up something. Mm-hmm. I never gave up anything. It's like a diet, right? You want to lose weight? Are you sacrificing the cookies and ice cream, or do you want to lose the weight? What's the priority? The main thing is to lose the weight. Calories in, calories out, right? Less calories in, more calories out. It's the same thing. More BS out your life, more good things in. Circumstances, more football, more school, more everything. Because my freshman year, I did struggle a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like I say, the work wasn't hard at Michigan. It was just the volume. It was almost like, if you can imagine this, it was like drinking water through a fire hose on full pressure.
All right, Tyrone. Well, again, I'm talking about Michigan and your best year, sophomore, junior, and senior. But the first time you go into Michigan Stadium, what was that feeling like for you? Because, again, 100,000 fans. And maybe not your first game, but your first Ohio State game, I'm sure, in that building had to been rocking as well.
All right. Once again, I'm going to tell you this, and you're going to laugh. None of that mattered to me. You're talking to a guy who played football, his high school football games, 12 noon on Friday. No one was there. Talk to a guy because of, the rivalries that we had in our conference, the Suburban Athletic Conference. You're talking to a guy who played basketball games at a neutral site with no spectators. So didn't make a difference how many people were there. Once again, my main thing was, I just wanted to kick somebody's ass. That's it. The fans didn't make a difference. When I was on the field, hell, I didn't even hear them. I didn't even know they were there. It was, I can't remember what movie it was. And it kind of hit me. And I was like, that's exactly how it is. The guy caught the ball and he was running and you could hear him breathing and the motions and the shoulder pads moving up and down. And the crowd was silenced. And then he hit the end zone. And then all of a sudden you're like somebody turned. I was like, that's exactly how it is. But I never once the crowd, that never mattered to me. Like I say, the main thing for me was I wanted to make my teammates happy, proud. I never wanted them, and it goes back to when I was like an Inkster Raider, like you never wanted to disappoint your teammates. You never wanted to. And that goes back from the days of playing pickup basketball and street football.
Mm-hmm.
You always wanted to be the number one guy picked. Never wanted to be that last guy. You always wanted to be the guy that somebody counted on. All right, man, like you're back in the day where it's you playing 5-on-5, 6-on-6 makes no difference. And the quarterback is in the dirt. He's drawing up the play, and we need this touchdown. Who's getting the ball? You want to be that guy. Or you want to be the quarterback. You want the ball in your hand. You always want someone to designate you as that guy. It's kind of hard designating yourself, but you always want, growing up, like I said, you wanted to be picked first. All right? Who get the first pick? You go rock, paper, scissors. First pick, shit, give me wheat. Right? Like I say, in those sandlot football games, you're drawing up the dirt, you're drawing up the play in the dirt. Who's getting the ball? We getting the ball. And everybody else on the other side know they're getting the ball. So if everyone knows that I'm getting the ball and my team is going to give me, once again, the opportunity and understanding the circumstances that I don't want to disappoint. You're going to put this lap of luxury in my hand. And people say that's stress or whatever the case, pressure. That's not pressure. It's not stress. That's what you live for. That is what you're here for. So I never wanted to disappoint my teammates. So for me, it wasn't about the fans. It wasn't about the crowd. I didn't care about any of that. It was just my boys. It was me and my boys in the huddle, and seeing the smile, especially when you see the big boys when the smile on their face. That's the best thing in the world. Receiver give you. I think for me, man, the biggest thing for me was to see my teammates smile. To be happy for me. And then for them to go out and you watch the film, you say, Jesus, Derek Alexander is busting his tail to go get this block. Desmond Howard is blocking this 6'3" corner, and he's trying to kill him, but Dez is struggling his butt. Now, these guys all have pride in what they're doing, and it's their job. So they're not going to block for me any harder than they will block for Ricky Powers or Jesse Johnson. But I felt like they were blocking harder for me. But I just wanted my teammates, man. And so, and I say, that's kind of always been my deal is, hey, please my guys. Please my guys.
Well, a lot to please them in 92, your sophomore season. You were the Big Ten rushing and scoring leader that season. You led the Wolverines to the Rose Bowl MVP that season as well. Is that kind of some of your biggest memories, your biggest takeaways from your time at Michigan?
I would say that's probably one of them. There's a lot of them. And once again, it's funny. I don't really, individual memory, I don't have a lot of them. I don't. Because at the end of the day, I shared a lot of them. So that year, Rose Bowl MVP, they kind of got mad at me. 3
touchdowns, by the way, including an 85-yard touchdown in that game.
Yeah, but guess what? I brought my offensive line in the media, in the interview deal, and I walked out. Right? I don't have that game if it isn't for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that game if it isn't for them. So I brought my boys in, and Kakuzo, Everett knows, and it's funny because they don't really like to talk, right? And I guess they had this little kangaroo court in their own room where if they talked to the media, they would find each other and do all this crazy stuff because they had a culture of, they're the underground, they're tough guys. So I said, to hell with it, man. Listen, I told the people in the interview room, hold on, wait 1 minute. I went and got my guys, and they were in there. Get your butts up, let's go. And I made them all sit down. I said a couple things, and I got up and I left. And it was like, we want to interview you. Interview those guys. Right? So, yeah, I did have some good times. I did have some memorable moments. But once again, I don't have them without my boys.
We just made JR, our creator, producer, and director, smile because he was an offensive lineman as well. So I know he appreciated that. And, and I know they do as well. Like you said, you can't do it on your own, especially as a running back. They create some big holes for you. And, you're 3-time Big Ten, all Big Ten as well in track and field. So the next step for you is the NFL, and that came in 1995, drafted 17th overall by the Giants. Take us through that moment when you heard it was the Giants and what's going through your mind at that time.
Well, so when you're going through this whole process, the teams are calling you and they're interviewing. They want to come out. They want to talk to you. They want to speak to you. So Cincinnati Bengals had this first pick, and I was going back and forth with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I was like, I don't think I'll be the first overall pick, but it would be great to be that pick. The Raiders I was talking to the Raiders every single day. It was like the Raiders, and then I think it was Cleveland was the next team that I was, but the Giants, never spoke to the Giants. Went to the combine. The only thing I think I did with the Giants was go take that crazy long psychological test that they had. It was the worst. And that was it. But never really heard from them. And so when my name was called the 17th pick by the Giants, I was surprised. I was like, wow. And the Raiders had the 18th pick. So I thought I was going to the Raiders. And I was like, wow, okay, the Giants. They have Rodney Hampton. I was a big, huge fan of Hamp at Georgia. Garrison Hurst, the lineage at Georgia, the running back. So I was a huge fan of Hamp. I was like, okay, why am I going to the Giants, right? And I go. And then, but to answer the question, man, it goes back to what I was talking about. You want to be picked first. You want to be counted on. You want to have the rock in your hand in those situations where they can say they can count on you. And that was kind of my life and my dream being fulfilled once again. That was incredible.
And you mentioned the Raiders. Eventually you would get to the Raiders, but before that, your time in New York, how do you characterize that or remember those years in New York?
It was, I say this, it was tumultuous, but it was an incredible growth experience for me as a person. So you get back to the point of, like I say, some of those old demons die hard, where you have to learn when to just relax, shut up, fall in line. Never been through a contract negotiation, right? Hugh Douglas was picked before me. So at that point in time, that's when I guess the tiering of contracts, there was no more open market, but that was kind of when the tiering of the contracts kind of went. So Hugh Douglas' numbers was this, and he was a 16 pick, and my numbers were lower than his. So we ended up getting to a holdout. And like I say, first time in it, I don't know. I'm thinking, once again, now the old switch turns on. The hell with them. They don't want me. Why would you draft me if you don't want me? You lowballing me, all these things. And then it comes out that Dan Reeves. So right as I'm thinking this, a week later, Reeves comes out and says, I wasn't his pick anyway. He didn't want me there. Oh, man. So my mind I flip. And everybody's trying to keep me calm. But once again, I flip. Nike calls me up and says, there's a track meet. And do you want to run in it? I said, what track meet is it? They said, it's the Golden West USA National Championship. I said, absolutely, I want to run in it. Then I said, hold on, stop. And I told him, I said, wait a minute. I said, man, I haven't been over a hurdle in 3 months. But once again, the hell with it. Let's go. Because remember, I don't have any money at this point. I'm not going to give you the price, but they said, here's it is. And here's the chance for me to get my Olympic card, right? Get a chance to go to the Olympic trials. But I'm sitting here thinking, damn, I haven't been over a hurdle in 3 months. And everyone's calling me stupid and crazy. Man, you're going to go there and get embarrassed. But once again, I'm a competitor. I take what you say and I try to prove it wrong. So I go to work. I practice for about a week. Get down there. I make it out to prelims, make it out to semifinals. Mm-hmm. I get to the quarterfinals. I'm right there, man. Alan Johnson, the world record holder, man. I'm right there. His lead leg goes up, mine go up. I'm maybe a stride behind him. And bloop, hurdle hits me. I go down. I'm beat up, and they said, well, you could run. They're going to run the quarterfinals over again. We're going to rerun it. said, I can't rerun it. I'm hurt. So I get up and I run it anyway. And I think I finished like 6th or 7th in that race. But for me, it was kind of like, damn, if I didn't hit that hurdle, do you realize I don't care if I place 4th or 5th, but I'm the 5th best hurdler in the United States. And I haven't been over a hurdle in 3 months. And these guys have been running all year. But guess who gets wind of that? The New York Giants catch wind of me running in this track meet, and then it just spirals out of control, right? I get into camp. Like I said, I hurt myself. I get into camp, and then I pull my hamstring running the conditioning test. I mean, I was in shape. I just pulled my hamstring running the conditioning test. And after that point, man, it was just downhill. And once again, I always like to admit my faults first. I would say, A, I shouldn't have ran the track meet. B, I got there and I started challenging the authority, right? Shouldn't have did that. But the challenge was, hey, you didn't want me and I'm here. Now you're trying to, make me into something that I'm not. They tried to make me a counter to Rodney Hampton. Rodney Hampton was just the power back and they wanted me to be the speed back. And I would laugh and I would say, what part of my film did you see speed back? I never saw speed. Now, I'm fast. I'm not quick.
Right.
I don't have the twitch that you guys think I have. That's not who I am. But what's going on? And then they tried to make me a fullback. Fullback, I'm not. But so instead of just saying, you know what? Because I accepted challenges in my life, but I never knew why I didn't accept those challenges and say, you know what? Why not go ahead and make it work? Because I could have been the fullback. I was going to get the ball. And at that point in time, fullbacks were the blocking backs. And going to the Pro Bowl, if you're a fullback and you have numbers carrying the ball, you're automatically in the Pro Bowl. So I could have been the fullback, getting the block, and been in the Pro Bowl almost every year. Kind of the Mike Allstott deal, right? Didn't do it. And just fought it, man. Just fought it. And until one day, Jim Skipper, my running back coach, said, hey, listen, you're about to fight yourself out the league. And Jim was probably like the only guy in Foxy. My guy Fox was another guy that I liked that I would listen to. And they both approached me different times, but Jim was like, hey, listen, your talent, just don't be a knucklehead. Don't be in that pile of good guys that could have been good players, but you're fighting the wrong fight. You're not going to win this battle. And once they said that, it resonated. And then turned it around, started playing a little bit more. Then, like I said, started playing fullback. I was blocking. And I can't remember if it was Tiki Barber or Charles Way. Was playing Philadelphia Eagles. We was on the goal line and had a nice block, but they ran up my back and fractured my ankle and tore the ligaments in my ankle. And that sidelined me for that season. And then after that, it was time for me to move on.
Yeah, 95 to 98, Jim Fossil came in, so that kind of helped things out for you, but eventually traded to the Dolphins, released, and then you found your way to the Raiders as well. Did you approach that? How did you approach going to the Raiders and maybe the opportunity that you had for yourself there?
Well, once you, like you say, opportunity, but the circumstances align. Like, and it just word circumstances is going to keep. And I'll never forget Jon Gruden and Al Davis. So the scout is getting ready to warm me up because I just got off the plane. They drove me out to Napa, about an hour, 20-minute drive from Oakland Airport. And I just remember warming up. Al Davis and Jon Gruden comes out and says, he doesn't need to warm. He doesn't need to run. He's not going to run. Doesn't need to run. And so we went and we talked. And Gruden said, what happened? What's the deal? What was your issue? And I told him. And Gruden said, listen, let's just cut it straight. I need a big physical SOB. I'm doing my Gruden invitation, right? I need a big physical SOB. I want to line you up 8 yards deep in the backfield like you did when you wore that wing helmet. I want you to come downhill, and I want you to punch SOBs in the freaking mouth. And now Dave was like, I just want like a big man with speed. Can you still run? I said, hey, fellas, I'm your guy. I'm your guy. And that was it. That was it. And when I tell you when the circumstances align, that's all I wanted to hear. That's what they were looking for. And voila, that's what happened.
Yeah, the stars certainly aligned, 99 to 2004. So a nice run with the Raiders. As you say, you started with Jon Gruden, Bill Callahan, Norv Turner. 2000, a great year for you, over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. You led them to the AFC Championship game. You lost to the Ravens, who would go on to win the Super Bowl. But to be in that spot for the first time, to play for that championship, what was that like for you professionally?
Once again, it just goes back to childhood, right? You're with someone who wants you, that you play in a pivotal role in, and that I feel a responsibility to the team, and I played a huge part in that. I mean, it's as simple as that.
2002, you took him a step further to the Super Bowl. In an ironic twist, it's against Jon Gruden, who had left to go to Tampa Bay. So what was that moment like when you're in the Super Bowl against a coach, again, that you said had some trust in you to bring you aboard, but now he's on the other line?
Bittersweet. I mean, you're happy for him, but, you hate that you have to lose to him. You hate that you lost, right? You want to beat him. You want to win because, shoot, it's your team. And no one remembers who finished second, but ultimately you're happy for him, and that's why I talk about the growth and maturation of that sore loser, right? It was good to see him because you've been with him and you know what he wants, but at the same time, you're like, damn, I want the same thing. But for me, it couldn't happen to a better person. If I'm going to lose to someone, I'd rather lose to him. I don't want to lose. Don't want to lose. Let's get that straight now. But if I did lose, couldn't have been a better person.
So for you, your run in the NFL, it ended in 2004, November. You get a hamstring injury. At what point did you decide to hang it up and figure, because that's a long run. I mean, we've talked to Robert Smith, we've talked to some other running backs that running back in the NFL is a tough position. Your lifespan is not long. You kind of outlive that average lifespan. So was it an easy decision to retire?
Absolutely. I wanted to retire in 7 years. But my wife and Al Davis and some people kind of talked me back into it. But after that 10th year, I was done. Yeah. I never forget when I told my wife, I said, I'm done. And she was like, you're quitting? I said, it's not quitting. I'm retiring. I go upstairs to tell Al Davis. He said, well, go take the weekend and think it over. I said, Al, there's nothing to think over. There is nothing to think over. I'm retiring, And he was like, I need you in the locker room. I said, Al, I get it, but it's not fun for me anymore. I just, the lifting weights portion of it, I'm getting older. I got to take Advil, Tylenol. We call it the old man cologne. I'm bathing in Flexol just to go to practice. It wasn't fun anymore. It just wasn't fun anymore.
Well, again, Tyrone, 10 years in the NFL, outstanding career, a long time. And the transition for you went into coaching. Why coaching? What do you get out of coaching maybe that you were getting as a player, as an athlete?
Full circle. My life is, like I say, it's basically a process. It's full circle. Started with the Inkster Raiders, Coach Dobbins and Coach Jones, Jim Skipper, Skip Pete, who's now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jon Gruden, Gary Moeller, and then my guy, my main man, Fred Jackson, running back coach at University of Michigan. I knew I wanted to make a change. I know I wanted, because as a player, I've seen a lot of guys come in with some of the same issues, background, and they just couldn't adjust, right? They just couldn't adjust. The circumstances, I just continue using this word, the circumstances of their past or their background, they kept bringing it into football, and it didn't mold and mesh. And I've seen a lot of those guys, some great players that come and they may make it and they may not, that's one attracted me to coaching. B, like I told you, I'm a competitor. I tried other business ventures. I'm not for that culture. I throw fastballs, man. No curves, no sliders. I don't like passive aggressive people. I don't like, people who talk. No, listen, just give it to me straight. And I'm going to give it to you straight. Some people and when you've lived in this world and this is what you come to respect and enjoy, I don't want to leave it. I just don't want to leave it. And it's been like my man so says, it's been very, very good to me. It's been very, very good to me. And I love it. And being able to just, my biggest wins and losses, never really came on the field. They were off the field. And so for me, helping these young men, from high school to college and even in the pro, when these guys retire, I still have a great relationship with a lot of my players. Even some of the guys I coached in high school, I still talk and speak with, help them get jobs. I've hired a few of my players, right? So my biggest wins as a coach doesn't come on the field. It's after when they're finished playing football, right? That's the biggest win for me.
And for you now, back in your home state at Wayne State, was that part of the allure to be the head coach there?
Man, that was the biggest part. That was the reason. I tell you, man, I don't play around. This right here, it's with me everywhere I go. It's with me everywhere I go. I live it, I breathe it. And Nas has this verse in his song. He said he had to leave the hood, but took the whole hood on his journey. That journey is now back home. Tyler Perry said something in a speech when he was winning a reward, and it resonated with me because I've been trying to get a seat at the table to become a head coach in the pros. Looking at my man Eric Bieniemy, who was my host at Colorado when I took my visit there, which is weird, right?
Wow.
So I see all these great men, these great football coaches trying to make this, get their seat and their reservations at this big table. And I said, you know what? The hell with it. I'm going to go make my own table. I don't care how big or how small. It's my table. And guess what? I can invite who I want to invite at my table because it's my table. And so coming back home, I want to feed my people. I want to give my people, right? So when we talk about the opportunity, I understand the circumstances. And I can speak to them and tell them, hey, listen, you may want this, but that's not the right path. Here's a circle. I walked in the shoes you walked in. I walked the streets you walked. Ate the same food. So we are of one. We're actually from the same cloth, And so therefore, man, for me to come back home and to sit in this seat and to be at Wayne State University in Wayne County, with my people, it's one of the greatest feelings in the world.
How can people follow your progress, follow your program as you get started on this journey with Wayne State, obviously starting next year in the fall, but are you on social media? Can people follow you?
I'm not a big social media guy. I'm trying to get into it. I don't have it yet, but you can follow us at waynestate.edu. We're our football page. You go to our football page, it's waynestate.football.edu. You can follow us there. And then, of course, about waynestate.football.edu at Twitter and what's the other one? That's how bad I am with this.
Instagram.
Yeah. So it's Wayne State Football or WSU Football.edu for our webpage, and then WSU Football at Twitter or whatever else it is out there. I apologize. Like I said, I'm not good at that stuff, man. I'm old school. I like phones. I like calling people. I like, interacting. Sitting behind this thing doing this all day, that's not for me.
Well, we started off the air talking about recruiting, and you've certainly recruited myself and JR, man. This has been a pleasure to hear from you, to hear your message, and certainly your career is one to watch and one that we will be watching as well. And best of luck to you again in the fall with Wayne State.
I truly appreciate you fellas having me on. Thank you very much.
Well, another great story you heard in the front row with Mike Vaccaro. Our thanks to Tyrone Wheatley joining us today, and also Jeff Weiss with the Wayne State Media Relations Department for helping set that up for us. As always, we thank you for watching, for listening, and remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and all of our other ways that you get your podcasts. We are available. Like, subscribe, and share as well. More great stories always coming your way right here in the front row with Mike Vaccaro. Have a great day, everybody.